Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stew again. Long time no see, let's get straight to the content. In this video I'm going to show you another simple wood grain texture technique. We will be using layers of triangle smears, and this is a technique you can adapt to other texturing ideas as well. We are turning surface snap on, and we will be working from above on the standard starting object. Our first layer will be a coloring layer. This will add some subtle depth and variation to the color of the final output. For that, I am choosing the default orange randomizer. To make our impressions on this default block, we will use a very wide negative triangle, and we want one of the edges pointing down into the surface of the block. I would avoid using keep upright and freehand the levelness of this instead. You'll get better and more interesting results that way. I have reduced the size of the tool quite a bit, and I'm simply smearing negative thin triangles across the surface to impress the color onto it. The general idea with these bands is that each one would be a plank in the woody surface. When I'm done, I'll go over that a second time. Depending on the depth of the smear and how slowly you move that over the surface, you may or may not need multiple passes. You'll also notice you get different color patterns depending on the speed of your passes. When that's done, we'll rotate it 90 or 270 degrees and increase the size of the tool until it extends all the way across the area we're working with. We will then switch our color to default random brown. Same basic idea, we're going to lay down some random brown tones, but since the tool will now be deeper in the surface, we'll start carving out more noticeable textures as well. How straight the tool is will determine the texture pattern. For wood, it works better if the tool is just a little crooked. And you can even get your PS4 gyroscope involved and vary the angle as you go on these sweeps across the planks. Same thing here. You may or may not need multiple passes. If the tool is too large, you'll scrape away a lot of stuff, and that doesn't work out so well with this approach, but make sure you keep it long and thin. At this point, we have something that's starting to look like wood grain. Where you start and how you proceed is up to you. Since I started with the default block, which is a salmon color, I wanted to build more browns, so I add brown highlights and dark areas to cover the pinks and provide contrast. I'm going for what most looks like wood to me, but remember, this is a texturing technique. You can use it for other surfaces. I've done concrete similarly as well, using greens, blues, and grays. You can also do additional side-to-side sweeps. If you go across quickly for wood in particular, you'll get something that resembles cut marks. Another thing you'll notice is that you get different grain effects if you do multiple up and down sweeps at slightly different angles. And then lastly, if you vary the size of the tool in different passes by widening it or scaling it, you'll also get different results. So your output here will be something resembling wood, but you can play with the idea and see where it leads you in various applications. You can see that here with me trying to add additional highlights, it's just not working. But I lengthen the triangle out and then scale it down to create less impact on the surface of the wood grain, and the result is more pleasing. It's also always important when sculpting to remember that you have the object's tweak menu available, so a thing does not need to be sculpted 100% the way you want it. You can get it close and dial in details like color and material properties with the tweaks. Like here, I started a little light, brought up some mid-gray with a touch of orange, and that really brought out the darker grain. Many times, the materials sliders will add that small amount of glow or specular highlight that sculpt edits and spray paint alone are lacking. If you're breaking wood grain into planks, you can then stamp or smear a few grooves between the planks. I'm using pure black here, which I normally wouldn't recommend, but I find it effective on wood grains. If you're worried about bottoming out with color value by using pure black, you can inch out of that, but for me, the pure black really gives it a rough, burnt feel that anything less doesn't quite achieve. Once you've finished with that, you'll notice that the Sculpture Detail tool is going to present you with some options. That's because when using this technique, the grain will change slightly at different detail levels. You can see here we're at 1% graphics cost, and it looks pretty sharp at this level in my opinion, but you might want to cycle through various levels of detail to see what looks best to you. Also, in terms of a general texturing technique, you might find that too sharp or too loose for wood grain actually resembles some other material. And right here you can see this is super cheap overall. Realistically, you'd probably want to make this section larger for purpose, but you get the idea. One other thing I've been doing with wood lately is to hit the very deepest parts of the grain with black spray paint once or twice to really pull those areas back and sell the depth. I'm doing it on grid here, but you don't have to. This is easiest with keep upright on and then use a box brush large enough to do the whole thing in one spray. That's cheaper from a shared memory standpoint. And this is the technique in a nutshell. Hopefully it will be useful or give you some ideas. I have more videos to come, but I wouldn't expect more than one every 2 or 3 weeks or so. And that's all for now. Until next time, I'll see you in the Dreamiverse.